I'm excited to have you on because we connected at Podfest and you gave an amazing talk while you were there. And I'm
Thank you.
excited to dive into a little bit of your behind the scenes of growing your business and that got you to a place that you're in right now.
Yeah, I'm so excited to share. I'm a mom of two not so quite little girls anymore, and started my business when my youngest was 8 months old. So, running a business and being a mom is my experience. It's what I'm used to. So I'm so excited to talk about that today.
Yeah, let's dive in because I have two little girls like right around that same time that you started your first business with your 8 month old. Mine are 2.5 and 1 right now. So I'm sure that there's a lot of women out there that can relate to that newborn, even like toddler stage where they're just so clingy and they want your attention all the time, and trying to balance both is sometimes a struggle. So how did you do that like in the beginning, especially like when you're feeling all this guilt and pulled in all the different directions?
Yeah. So at the very start, like I said, my youngest was 8 months old when I left my corporate job to start my own business, which is a different business than what I have now. But one of the things that I tried to do very quickly was kind of, they tell you as a mom, which doesn't always work, sleep when the baby's sleeping. To me, it was like work when the baby's sleeping. By the time she was 8 months old, she was starting to get a little bit more on a schedule and everything. And I knew that when I put her down for a nap, it was work time. It wasn't time to go pick up things. It wasn't time to make myself lunch. It wasn't time for any of that stuff. It was time to work. That I could make myself lunch when I made her lunch. That I could, be doing like I wasn't. I was staying home to really start a business, not to clean the house or things like that. Those other chores could be done at a different time. So I really started prioritizing when I was working around times that it worked well for having a child, like during nap times. One of the other things that I also did was I would sometimes have my computer or my phone with me while she was having like playtime and everything. And if she was busy entertaining herself, I was just like, all right, well, let me jump on and check an email or do something real quick on my phone or my computer. In a way, I feel like that kind of taught her as, all right, well, you don't always need mom to play with you, taught her to be a little bit more independent, and also allowed me to get stuff done while I was having her right there. As time progressed and she got a little older, I was just really sticking to that schedule. Unfortunately, this also meant sometimes staying up really late and working like once the kids were in bed, once my husband was home and everything. But I knew that's what I had to do for a period of time because that was the time I had available. And like I was going to say, is like as she got a little bit older, I wasn't afraid to take her to meetings with me. So if I start as my business started to grow, and actually as I changed to the business I have now, and I started meeting occasional client in person or coffee chat in person, I brought her with me. Like I had her tag along, and I'd get her we'd go to meet at Panera and I'd get her a muffin, and she would just sit there and entertain herself with a muffin and like crayons for a good chunk of time and everything. So I really learned what worked to keep my child entertained when I was being able to get work done.
Oh, that's so great. And wow, what an amazing child to be able to bring her with you to meetings. So I can't imagine that right now in the stage that I'm in, but
Yeah.
it's
It's one
amazing.
of those things that I remember, this was quite a few years ago, and it was over the summer. So I had both girls home, and this was probably 2019. And um, I was presenting at one of the leads groups that I was in. And this leads group, we met at a restaurant, and I just got there a little bit early. I set them up at a table. I talked to the waitress. I got made their breakfast orders. They had their tablets. They had their coloring books. And because that group of people had never actually met my kids before, they didn't even know that they were my kids. And they kept looking over like, whose kids are just randomly sitting at a table? And when I gave my presentation, I was like, oh, yeah, that's my children over there. Like I was just a table away and keeping an eye on them. But I was very lucky and fortunate that my kids would entertain themselves and sit there. And so I was able to bring them along to meetings.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Round of applause for you because that's what it is to be a mompreneur, is trying to balance it all and figure out how to make it work together and for your lifestyle and for your family. Like that's the beauty of it, is being able to get creative and you know, it's so empowering too when you feel like you left a meeting, you closed the deal or whatever, you were doing in that space, and to know that your kids are watching you do that. It's the most incredible feeling.
Yes, yes, it totally is. And I think it's also helped that over the years, a lot of my clients end up being moms. And so, there's always a chance that they're going to have to cancel a meeting because their kid got sick and they have to go pick them up. And it was just having that understanding on both sides that, I'm a mompreneur and so are they.
Oh, yes. So tell us a little bit about more your mindset in the beginning, because you brought it up that this is for a temporary time. I tell myself that all the time. Like, even though I'm staying up until 11 o'clock at night or working more than I ever had in my life, it's only temporary, that we have a 5-year plan and we're well working toward it. Like, we're close, we're getting there. So I'm curious, like, what your mindset was at that time.
Yeah. So for me, it was just trying to figure out what was going to work for me in my business, being able to try new things. But I would say one of the things, like talking about mindset, that kind of I think held me back for a little bit is, as I mentioned, that the business I left my corporate job to start is different than the business I have now. And one of the biggest things I had with mindset when I made that switch, and it was completely different. It wasn't pivoting a business. It was like completely shutting down one idea and starting something new and different, that I was afraid to talk about it because I was afraid. I was just like, how do you tell people you stop something without it coming off as I failed? And
Yeah.
so it took a long time to get past that mindset of being like, I didn't fail. I realized something wasn't working, that mostly it wasn't making me happy. And I switched to something else because there were days in that early stages when we were starting that other business where I'd be busy and then I'd be staying up late to do things that I hated. And it wasn't just like, as a business owner, you have to take on a lot of tasks that, yeah, they're not your strength, but you have to do them at first until you can hire. It was that I was doing tasks that I loved, but in an industry that I learned I didn't love. And I was just like, I made a pivot in my life to be like, let me do something that I want to do, but having to get over that mindset of, because I changed, I meant I failed. And it was just kind of like reshifting that. I was like, no, I'm doing something that I love. That I kept telling myself I didn't leave my corporate job that I enjoyed to run a business that I hated, that was making me miserable, just so I could call myself a business owner. So it was like, even though I had limited time, making sure that I was focusing on something that was meaningful to me, that I wanted to spend my time there, that I wanted to continue growing this business because it matched my passion, it matched my energy level, it matched how I wanted to help people.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think we can all relate to that feeling, and like the societal standard that if you're not constantly doing something, or if you're not doing it in a way, or you change something, it does come off that way, or we feel that way, like that we failed. And
Mhm.
that could be in anything, like whether we're doing a launch and it didn't go the way that we wanted it to, and you pivot and you shift and you do a different product. It's not that you give up on it, you're just realizing the feedback wasn't what you wanted it to be, and you're shifting, you're making it better, you're improving, you're just being more aligned with your audience and with what you want to be doing. So I'm
Exactly.
curious, what is your business now? And can you explain like how you came to it and what really inspired you about it?
Yeah. So the business I have now is called Growing Your Team, and small business owners hire us to really teach them and guide them through the hiring process. So they can learn how to hire like a pro. So we really provide comprehensive guidance and bespoke hiring strategies. So that way, when you go to hire, you're not just hiring a body that might be able to do the work, that you're really able to confidently hire that idea candidate for you, that person that you're going to be happy to give a paycheck to every pay period. And so I really got here. So, like I said, I left my corporate job to actually start a software development business with my husband. So completely different than consulting, and realized I hated it. And when I left there, I was like, what am I going to do? Because I knew that if I said, all right, this didn't work out, let me go get another job, I'll try this entrepreneurship thing again in the future, that I'd be too scared to make that leap again. Because what happens if what you leave for doesn't work out again? Like, how many times can you leave some corporate and come back and then be able to go back to corporate? So I was like, I need to find something that I want to do. And I was lucky enough that the corporate company that I left kept me on as a consultant for 6 months, helping them with some leadership focused projects. And that's what made me realize that I loved consulting and I loved teaching people how to improve skills that they needed to be successful in their role. That time, all the projects really revolved around helping people step into being a first time leader in the organization and learning those skills. And so I was like, all right, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and start this consulting company, helping to coach people moving into their first management job. Because a lot of times you get moved up to management because you're really well at being an individual contributor. You do really well there. And then you're like, oh my gosh, now there's all these things you have to do as a manager that I never did because I've never been a manager before. So how do you provide feedback? How do you hire? How do you do all these things? But my problem was I spent my pretty much entire corporate career at one company. I didn't have a huge network and all these things. So I was just like, how exactly am I going to get my foot in the door as being a consultant? So I decided to go to my local chamber because I was a chamber member from the software development company. And I was like, all right, let me just go and talk to businesses, really find out exactly what they need. So when I go and do pitches, I can be very specific in my pitch of like, I know this is a need in a lot of corporate companies instead of just where I came from. During these meetings, I would gravitate towards small business owners and I would have the best conversations with small business owners. But I was like, all right, well, let me just practice like talking to people, finding out their needs. So we'd have these conversations. And what I kept hearing over and over again was that their biggest need was hiring, that most small business owners never hired someone before doing it within their own organization. Or if they did hire when they were working for someone else, they had these HR teams and all these people that were helping them through the process. And now they're here with nothing. There are no job descriptions. There is no established process. You don't have HR helping you screen candidates or source candidates. And they didn't know what they were doing. And they said they were constantly making bad choices just to get through the hiring process. And it was costing them time. It was costing them money. They were in these hiring and firing cycles. And they kept saying, well, can you help us there? Seeing you'll help, with leadership training. And at first I said, no, my audience is corporate clients. But I'll find someone for you. And I couldn't find anyone working with the small businesses, those making their first few real strategic hires. Anyone who was helping people with hiring is like, you had to have a minimum of 50 employees. We can't get to 50 employees if you do really poorly with your first 3 employees, because that can make or break your team. That can make or break your business. So I really thought about it. And I was like, I'm hearing this need all the time. I have the knowledge and skills on how to teach people how to hire well for their team. Let me do it. If no one else is doing it, I'm going to do it.
Oh my gosh. There's a couple pieces to that story that I want to break down for everybody. Like, first, that you did a survey. Basically, you went to your local community and you're like, what do you guys need in your business that I can help you with? And then you saw the need and you filled it with your experience and your expertise. We all have something that we're strong in, whether that's like you, like hiring a team, or for me, it's creating businesses and starting them, or helping you overcome your mindset barriers. Floral design, we have a strike business where we help other event florists break down their events. So trying to fill the hole with your strengths is really incredible. And then going back to the community and showing them this is what you could do to help them. I love it. All of it.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's one of the things, like you mentioned, like helping people with your strengths. And I feel like sometimes our strengths are our strengths and we don't realize it because they come so easy for us that not everyone has the same strengths as us. So for myself, when I'm just like, wait, like, why is this such a challenge? And realizing that, oh, well, it's easy for me because I've built those strengths. When I was in corporate, I started at not knowing how to hire, but I was able to quickly gain the skills because I had people that were coaching me or other things that I was able to build those skills. And now I have that strength. And it's like, it's a strength for you, but not for other people, and being able to help them create that strength within themselves.
Yeah, really true. And you touched on this a little bit, like you don't even realize it's a strength when other people are having the struggle, like in that kind of aspect. And you're like, it just comes so natural that sometimes it doesn't even think that it could be an opportunity for you to like grow on because it's just like innate within you.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So, can you share any last advice for our female listeners or mompreneurs that are looking to start their business? Because maybe they don't even know where to start. They might not have any idea about what they want to do or what they could be a strength for them.
Yeah. So one of the things that really helped me when I was trying to figure out like making that transition, other than talking to people, because even after I talk to people, it's like, how exactly do I build this into a business? At that point in time, I was working through things with a business coach and everything. And unfortunately, I don't remember the exact questions, but she brought me through these series of questions to really uncover kind of like, what were my values? What did I like doing? Like, and it wasn't, these questions weren't necessarily business focused. They were just kind of more general. And that was one of the things when I did that, I realized that in every one of my answers, people came to the forefront in every answer. That word was over and over and over again. And it really helped me realize that no matter what I did, I was going to be happiest if my business centered around people and not just working with people. Cause you're like, yeah, okay, every business you're going to have clients, but that my business really centered around making people better and supporting people and getting people on your team and things like that. So if you're really struggling to figure out what should I do, spend some time to really figure out what your passions are. And sometimes getting there in a more roundabout way where you can figure it out versus being, because if you ask you, what are your passion? It's going to maybe be a little bit more, I would say either harder or I don't know the right word I'm looking for here, but when you have that more like kind of roundabout questions to really uncover your passion, you can then see what really comes up when you're asked other questions than what is your passion. You see what are those themes that come up. And then the last thing I just want to give this piece of advice is remember when you're building your schedule, you're in control. One of the things that I feel like I heard someone tell this they were repeating a story that they had told their clients. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that is one of the best pieces of advice I ever heard. Was their client was struggling because they were going to do school pickup every day. And this was actually a male client. And this male client was like, well, dads don't normally do school pickup a lot of the times, but for me, that's important. And how do I explain it to my clients that I'm not available at this time because I'm going to do school pickup? And this gentleman's coach told him, who cares what you're doing? You're just not available. Nobody needs to know why you're not available. You're just not available. And it was like one of those things. It's like, yeah, like if I have a day off because my kids are off that day from school, no one needs to know that I'm not available because I'm spending time with my kids. No one needs to know that I'm not available every day at 3 p.m. because I go to do school pickup. No one needs to know that I'm not available on a Tuesday afternoon because I'm taking kids to the dentist. It's just simply, I'm not available. Here are other times that I am available. And really realizing that you're in control of your schedule and you don't have to explain yourself.
That's a big one, especially for women, because we feel guilty about everything and we feel like we have to, like, it's never just no, or it's never just I'm not available. It's always, no, I have blank, or fill in, whatever kind of excuse that we have that's like valid for our life.
And it's
That's
one of
really
those things
powerful.
where if it's like we're taking time off because we're going to go spend with our kids or these random things, an appointment, like we feel like we need to explain ourselves. But if it's that you have another client meeting during that time, normally you're not explaining, oh, I'm meeting with such and such client to go over this. It's no, you're just saying, nope, I'm not available during that time. So it's like remembering that protect yourself, protect your schedule. No, you're not available. Here's when I am available. And let them pick a time within your availability.
So good. Thank you for reminding everybody that, because that is so important, and it's really difficult sometimes, especially as an entrepreneur, to like have the boundaries and to put them in place in your calendar. I know sometimes I even still get double booked with like meetings because for some reason my calendar didn't sync, and it's just like trying to squeeze it in. And you should just have the conversation and just say, I'm sorry, like I'm not available at this time. This is what we can do next time.
Yeah. And it's even one of those things where last minute things come up, like, and it's not being afraid to say, like, even when sometimes something's going on with our children, to say, listen, I'm going to have to reschedule because things are going on and I can't give you the attention that you deserve right now. So can we reschedule for a different day or time?
That's a good one. It's all in, like, I encourage everybody to have some key phrases that they can refer back to, that being one of them, so that it's easy for them to just plug in and have this beautiful response when something goes like awry,
Yep.
so that we could just like have a template basically of a response to say, I'm sorry, we can't give you the attention that you need right now. let's reschedule for another time.
Yeah. Yes,
Thank
exactly.
you. Thank you again for being on, Jamie. This has been so fun connecting with you again. Can you just share with everybody what your podcast is and where they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my podcast is Growing Your Team with Jamie Van Cuyk. And you can get in touch with me by going to growingyourteam.com. We're on Instagram under Growing Your Team. And if you want to send me an email, you can send it to jamie@growingyourteam.com.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Jamie. This has been fun.
Yes, thank you.